this looks to me like Noe Offman on the right, one of Quebec's youngest rabble rousers, but has an RC top 8 to his name, or maybe not. We will see.
Yeah. If not, maybe this weekend we do.
That is certainly CFT on the left, though. So if you've been following competitive Magic lately, you know the name CFTSOC. Maybe don't know the name Zhang, but they are one and the same. But you might be thinking, wait, hold on, isn't CFT American? Yes, they are. So the backstory here is they didn't realize that they had to get an invite via RCQs for the season, and so didn't bother to try. Found themselves unqualified as a result for Minneapolis. Went there, tried to LCQ in, lost playing for the 5-0 with the final bullet, so didn't get to do that. Ran it back in Hartford, also lost playing for the 5-0 there, did not get to play Hartford. But they liked the Parasec so much and wanted to play more of this format, so they decided to take their talents to Montreal instead. Did manage to LCQ in, now sitting at 3-0, and beneath the bright lights for you all, which they don't love to be perceived, but the flaw in their plan is when you win all the time and often with really cool decks, you're going to be perceived. That's just how it works.
It really is. It's nice that, for years the Canadians have been coming down to the American tournaments and kind of, kicking our butts. So I'm glad we could send a ringer up there,
Yeah, this is revenge for the SUG ATM from the pre-COVID days.
The SUG ATM. Wow. Enough times passed, I see. We're bringing it back. A stock up hits 2 spells and then a pass back here. Monster Swift Spear in play for Michael. Looks like Michael up a game. This is game number 2, which means we probably had a bit of a slugfest game 1 because we are deep into the round as Corey Steelcutter comes down.
Followed by torch my own thing to make a monk. So I know there's been a heated debate about Burst Lightning versus Torture Tower and so on, and this is one of those cases where this would be a win for Burst Lightning. Maybe that doesn't make up for all the others, but spots like this, it always feels a little embarrassing to just torch your own thing for no value, even if you're getting a good return on it somehow.
All right, Monster Swift Spear is coming down. That's where CFTSOC lands on the Swift Spear versus not. A Braid hitting the Corey Steelcutter, getting a Prowess trigger on the Swift Spear. Looks like we're going to tap our mana for something else. Storm Chaser's talent. Oof, sequencing. We missed a Prowess trigger. I think CFT will be able to handle it, though. It's an attack in for 3 habits. Sorry. I couldn't pass the opportunity up. The otter could have been bigger, Dom. Just,
Aren't otters meant to be small and nimble? Isn't that how it works?
Well, Play Design did a bad job then of getting the balance around that one because those things are huge every time I see them.
Like if your otter gets big enough, that's just a whole ass bear right there.
Yeah, it is like a bear. Why is there any moose? I guess there's like Ulvenwater Oddity in Magic. I was thinking about, Canadian things.
He who must not be named, aka Gigantha, arguably a moose.
Oh, I think it's an elk.
Close enough, right? Tempest Heart, iconic moose / elk.
Mm-hmm. All right, Michael is gonna level up this level up this and pick up an opt. Could have gone into the Floodmaw and torched the tower this turn, answered both of CFT's threats, and hit for an extra 4 damage. Decides to hold them for now. Sleight of hand here for CFT. Combo for the sake of combo.
So chat, if you have any iconic mooses, meese that you want in that conversation, let us know in the comments. Make sure your voice is heard.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Ray for this event, this is the first Monastery Swiftspear we've seen cast on camera. And so yeah, this is the more aggressive side of that, if you like, but not wholly aggressive. So I believe Ray does not have the Slick Shot show-offs and so on. Kind of striking this middle ground with Drake Hatchers, has some ways to go longer, Torture Tower over Burst Lightning, not only 2 Monstrous Rage, but still like Swiftspear. Just, hey, I'm a Parasec, hasty one drop with prowess sounds good to me, even if I'm not going balls to the wall aggression.
Yeah. And this sleight of hand here, it looks to be a tough one. If you're in a spot like this, what are you thinking your opponent's even thinking about?
I mean, in theory, right, like you want to take some amount of time on every cantrip like that, so you're not leaking information. In practice, usually if someone's taking this long, it's a tough decision for them. So, either two different versions of the same thing or two very different things and having to work out which one actually matters. And so, I mean, sleight of hand, that's usually a simple choice. When it gets to like stock up, for example, well, that might just be impossible.
Yeah. All right. Has Corey Steelcutter in hand along with End of the Floodmaw, Monstrous Rage. Oh, it's double Into the Floodmaw. Okay. I couldn't make out the last card there for a second, but I have solved the Sphinx's riddle. Monstrous Rage. Dom, are we presenting close to lethal here? This is a lot of damage.
There's some arithmetic being done here before our eyes.
Yeah, I mean the creatures from the prowess alone is 6. The rage makes it 9, which means if you were to double Into the Floodmaw, you could get us up to 13, which is not quite lethal, but pretty good. And you can tell Ray Zhang, better than a CFT, setting up lethal with that main phase Monstrous Rage. Not someone who just plays cards for the sake of playing cards, nor is that a play people make for the sake of making plays. Is Michael upkeeping? Or is maybe Ray paused in the upkeep? I don't think we drew for turn. Maybe we did and I just missed it.
Yeah, often the math gets really complicated in these mirrors where you can't deal lethal this turn. You can deal lethal over 2 turns if you commit a certain amount on this turn, but then maybe that leaves you exposed to, well, if they have A and B but not C, they can still kill me anyway on that. So you see how it just quickly gets very difficult for any human, even one that's talented, to actually calculate in real time.
Yeah. Want to give Michael a huge shout there. Upkeep, torch the tower with bargain, knowing this game might be ending soon here, wants to clear some of the damage, but also make sure we kind of hit, some heat. Bottom the land before, drew a land. Op bottoms a card, draws a land. Unfortunate, but very tight play. Controlling what we can and attacking here for 4. CFT taking a chance to be like, should I Into the Floodmaw this? But you are right, Dom, about like it's so hard to process all this and think about what's happening. I've seen lots of great players really struggle to articulate and share thoughts, even the ones I think are like very strong at doing that about this deck on like, why am I building my deck this way? Why did I make this play? There is a lot of thought going on and they have intentionality. It's just there's so much to be considering and thinking about with every option. Honestly, it reminds me of like when I first started playing Legacy. Not to that extreme, like there aren't any 0-mana spells, but there's a ton of intentionality to every single play we have to make as Swiftspear's attacking back for 2.
Yeah, meanwhile, in all that carnage, Floodmaw ate a token, and so but both players kind of minimize the amount of damage they would take in the short term. And now it looks like Ray is leveling talent to 2.
All right, and the
get
talent
back Floodmaw maybe as a defensive measure, or Monstrous Rage if they sense weakness.
It looks like stock up, maybe trying to know this game's gonna go long. I think I really like this play from Ray. Ray kind of felt like there's an End of the Floodmaw going on over there, and so it was like, okay, I'm not even sure if I'm gonna get this far. Now that I am, think about kind of everything that's happened so far, figure it out. Where normally I'm a big proponent of, think through your whole play, then execute. A lot of, if this then that moments. Here's another land for Michael.
Yeah, I think this could also be, right, if nothing too bad happens in the short term, or in the short term, Ray feels favored. However, if Michael's draw takes a turn to where suddenly it looks like it's going to be a longer game, like Michael draws stock up into a removal spell, let's say, then Ray wants to have that firepower left in the tank to go toe to toe in that longer game as well.
All right, here comes Corey Steelcutter into another Corey Steelcutter.
Different arts, love it.
Yeah, a little head shake there. Into the Floodmaw, still in hand here. It is lethal if you go for it. Currently, I believe it puts Michael to 1, if I am correct. Yeah, and Michael is going to, looks like, into the Floodmaw finally. Remove the token. Take, excuse me, it was lethal before because of the Monstrous Rage roll. That is my mistake. So force play here takes 4. Does decide to answer the permanent thing instead of the bigger Swift Spear and saves some life, but draws another land, and we're gonna get a game number 3 here. Tough spot, but well played on both ends. I think Michael really gave himself the best chance to get out of what was a really, really tricky spot. And we're gonna pull up some deck lists here real quick. All right, we're starting with CFT's list. If you're curious what they are up to, here it is. And Dom, what do you think about this? We have Swiss Spears and Thunder Trap trainers. I know you talked a bit about it before after seeing it in action.
Okay, no, I was right. It is Noe Offman on the right. So we will try and correct that real fast here. I knew I recognized him. The little scamp himself. In any case, so CFT, yeah, after I know they have tried a lot of different things just in general and in Paris for this event, have come around to nothing that stands out as obviously remarkable, right? It's just the specific mixture of cards here that's most interesting.
Mhm.
But the big question in standard, right, is what matters in the Izzet mirrors, and this was the big question in the first RC in Bologna. It was the big question in the USRC, and then the other USRC. And after all of that, from all the people I've spoken to, there's still not really any kind of firm consensus there. So each person has their own like individual stance, which can make it kind of interesting to see where everyone lands on it. But yeah, I even watching some of Ray's discussions about this deck for this tournament, I couldn't tell you with confidence like what the exact mirror plan is going to be.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is something where every person I've talked to, like you just said, has different thoughts. And honestly, Dom, there's some times where like that's the case, and I'm kind of like, yeah, but like, what I just don't buy what you're selling. There's been a lot of good salespeople this season. I have heard a lot of plans where I walk away and I'm like, I bought that house. And the next day someone comes up to me and I'm like, I bought another house. New game plan makes a lot of sense, and a lot of, ability to play the game you want to play with this deck. And I think that's why we see so many diverging builds. It's just all so, so strong. Is it really on top of the standard format right now? Take a look at Noah's deck. Or no, excuse me, Offman. It's got the slick shots just killing people. It's only one in the main, one in the board, but we're killing.
Yeah, it's funny seeing these lists diverge where at the start, right, you kind of pick a lane and you commit to it. So it's 4 Swift Spear, 4 Show Off, 4 of whatever your alternative is. But
Mhm.
now you see players just like dabbling in a little bit of everything. So 2 Monastery Swift Spear here and there, or some people they don't want to choose between Drake Hatcher and Select Shot, so they main deck one and they sideboard the other, and that can
Mhm.
go either way. So that choice in and of itself, it's not just like which cards are in the 75, it's how many and where are they and when do they come in, and that's all complicated in its own right.
Definitely a thing that is hard to figure out. Speaking of hard to figure out, Ray didn't have that with the hand mulligans down to 6. This is a deck that I think, like at first glance, you might expect wouldn't be very good at mulliganing, right? Like I think historically, prowess decks, if they're not like killing you on turn 3, just don't mulligan well. This deck, very good for being the kind of deck it is and mulliganing.
Yeah, and it helps when all of your cards are so cheap, and then you can literally stock up, right? You have one of the best card advantage cards printed in years to just get more material or to find specific things, and you have Stormchaser's talent in longer games too. So the deck does have its own weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but on that axis, it plays better than most decks in the format.
Sleight of hand here. The very, modern what's the word? Abstract art piece.
Mm. Not quite sure where
Sorry.
the hands are, which maybe is the sleight of hand, right? If you know
Yeah.
what's going on. There's commitment to the bit. But yeah, Noe off to a really nice start here. Second talent plus sleight of hand. Ready for to just opt. Or need an impressive turn 2 here.
Oh, yeah, this one lander, I think, is what we maybe had. And then we found an island.
This is one of the fail cases of the prowess deck, I think, is when you have a hand that maybe is landlight or is missing something, and you have to just spin your tires a bit, casting these pretty middling cantrips just to try and repair the damage, which if you have time, great, but if you don't, as Noe has a solid start on the play, then it might be too little too late, even if you do find it.
All right, Monster Swift Spear into opt. And this is, I think, one of the big reasons to be Swift Spear is you can run over each other in the mirror sometimes if they're spending too much time drawing cards. And then, against matchups like Overlord or Omni, you're a little less at their mercy, can kind of cheese them out. A sleight of hand is going to be the play here. Thumbs up and the Flood Maw Drake Catcher. I mean, this is an attack for 9, Dom.
Yeah, the Thundertrap Trainer would not be attacking for giant chunks of damage here. Just saying.
True.
Now, feel free to quote me there when, a top deck Monastery Swiss Spear with an empty hand on turn 5, Thundertrap might be a bit nicer. But in the world we live in right now, Swiss Spear is showing why it's been a staple of the deck at the beginning.
Yeah, and our job on commentary, it's to take whatever makes us look the smartest and just do it in the moment. So, we will be switching sides with Thundertrap Trainer when that moment arises, Dom. Don't you worry.
As we said, Mason, you are the main character here, and so all of
Yeah, many people are saying that.
No, just throwing some cards around, making sure no one feels safe.
Yeah. Got to keep your opponent guessing. All right, pass the turn. Monsters Rage the pickup. So opt into the Flood Maw and Draycaster were the other 3 we had. We're going to start things off with opt. Looks like a potential thumbs up, decides against it. We're going to go for, I believe that's an Abrade on the Otter. I assume in response to the Prowess trigger. No, doing some math this turn. Could Monstrous Rage the Swift Spear and chunk in for a ton of damage, but that would mean the whole turn versus developing a Draycatcher. Nice face-to-face hoodie here for now. Putting on the coverage for us this weekend. Big shout out to them. Attack here for 2. Down to 9. And we are just going to develop the Drake Catcher and pass the turn back. All right, I think that was a land off the top island. All right, and a braid on the Drake Catcher into Storm Chaser's talent. Big turn here for Ray.
Yeah, I mean, single digit life total, Swift Spear can attack freely, and then fourth land, like, spells are scary, but also on tap fourth land, no, he can just level up talent if he wants to, if he really has nothing better to do. And if he does, well, that's also terrifying. Looks like Noe might be, we see a Monstrous Rage and at least one Floodmore, so I don't think it's not lethal quite yet, but it's really not far off.
All right. Swing for 1 and gonna rage it. Pushing 5 damage through here. And then into the Floodmaw is the 6th. Putting Ray down to 3. Thundertrap Trainer could never.
More and more people are saying this, in fact.
Mm-hmm. And a land for the turn and a pass. And I really like this play. You know, you talked about like last turn how things were so bad for Ray going in. Obviously, Ray had a good turn, but wasn't out of the woods. Noah's making so lots of live draws here are lethal. Forces Ray's hand to be a bit more reactionary, you know? Also, that's a clock on the wrist there for their actual time. Since we did move them, they have a slightly different round clock than us, I believe. But yeah, I mean, even if we answer everything, we can just level up these talents.
And for those of you watching via Twitch, Ray is half of the streaming duo, Joint Exploration, so definitely go and check out their Twitch channel if you want to see some of their more deranged experiments work through in real time.
And they are deranged. And experiments. There's some stuff in there that I would never have thought of. And I think about some really awful things in Magic.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. For my first times meeting Dom, he comes over to me, he goes, Mason, you're down to play some awful decks. And then the Floodmaw gets shown here, and that's going to be lethal. Congratulations. Moving on to 4-0. Noah's got to feel good about that one. Tough opponent, down a game. Tied in games there, but clutches it out with a few minutes left on the clock.